welcome to this deep dive. Today we're looking into something called motion theory. I've been going through some really fascinating notes on it. And if you're used to thinking about the universe, through traditional religious ideas, this offers a really compelling alternative perspective.
It really does.
We're going to explore how looking at reality through motion, structure, synchronization, and rhythm, well, it gives a completely different spin on some basic questions about existence.
That's a great way to put it. It's like shifting your whole viewpoint, seeing everything from tiny particles right up to the cosmos as an expression of these core ideas.
A fundamental shift.
Yeah, exactly. And it can lead to some real aha moments as we unpack it. Think of it like learning a hidden language of how things work.
Okay, let's dive right in then, the big one.
Yeah.
Creation of the universe. Traditionally, many religions talk about a specific event, often like a 6-day creation, right?
Yeah.
By an all-powerful creator.
Right, that specific past event narrative.
So how does motion theory approach that?
Well, motion theory paints a radically different picture. Instead of a single creation moment, it talks about a continuous process.
Continuous?
Yeah, imagine motion constantly structuring itself, building more and more complex rhythms. And this isn't something that happened back then. It's happening right now, everywhere.
So creation isn't over. It's ongoing.
Exactly. It's the universe doing its thing, constantly unfolding through motion, not a finished product.
Less like a painting, more like a dance. Always evolving. That's a big shift. Okay, what about our place in all this? Religious views often put Earth and humans right at the center of it all.
The centrality of Earth. That's a common theme, historically understandable, of course.
Well, motion theory.
Motion theory suggests something different. It sees our planet, amazing as it is, as just one, you could call it one loop of structured motion among, trillions.
Just one loop?
Pretty much. We aren't the centerpiece. We're one particular system that happened to stabilize enough for, complex things like us beings asking questions to emerge.
So our ability to observe and question isn't because we're central. It's more like a result of achieving a certain kind of stable pattern within all this motion. Interesting.
Precisely.
Okay, this leads naturally to the origin of life. Many religions talk about a divine spark, right? So special intervention.
Yeah, that idea of life needing something extra, something non-physical to get started.
How does motion theory explain life emerging?
It offers a really fascinating view. It sees life as a particular phase of motion. Think of motion getting organized to a point where it's stable. It can adapt to its environment, and crucially, it can make copies of itself replicate.
So life isn't magic, it's motion figuring out complexity.
Kind of, yeah. It's motion resolving complexity by synchronizing in very specific ways. Life becomes this incredibly resilient, self-sustaining rhythm that motion found.
Synchronization. That word keeps popping up. Seems key.
It absolutely is. Yeah. It's fundamental to this whole framework.
All right, let's tackle something deeply personal, often spiritual. Consciousness.
Yeah.
And the idea of a soul. Religions often talk about an eternal soul, separate from our physical body.
Right, the idea of a ghost in the machine, so to speak, an enduring self that exists apart from the physical.
What's the motion theory perspective on consciousness?
It looks at consciousness more as a function of the brain. The theory suggests our awareness, our sense of being present, comes from the brain's amazing ability to link past memories and future possibilities, all in real time.
So that feeling of me, my inner self.
Motion theory sees that self as, perhaps an illusion, a construct the mind creates as it syncs up all these internal motion patterns, memories, thoughts, plans across time.
An illusion created by synchronized motion.
Wow.
And when we die.
According to this view, when those complex brain rhythms stop, consciousness ceases, there isn't a separate spirit or soul that carries on.
Just a rhythm ends.
The coherence breaks down. That's the idea.
That's definitely a profound departure. Okay, religion often talks about the unseen, other realms, beings beyond our senses, things you take on faith. How does motion theory handle the unseen?
This is interesting. Motion theory doesn't necessarily say there's nothing unseen, but it reframes it.
How so?
It suggests that what we can't perceive right now is probably just motion happening at frequencies or scales that our current senses. Well, we're just not set up to synchronize with them yet.
So it's not supernatural, just out of range.
Exactly. And crucially, it's not something to just accept on faith. It's potentially testable, something we might eventually understand and synchronize with as our tools and understanding evolve.
So the unseen is potentially the not yet understood.
Yeah.
That makes sense. What about vision, how we see? Maybe religion views it simply as receiving light, a gift.
Yeah, often a passive receiving of light that travels across space.
Motion theory's take.
It suggests a much more active process. Our brains aren't just passively catching photons that zipped across the void. Instead, the idea is that our brain is actively synchronizing with motion structures out there that are still resolving right now in the present, even if they're light years away.
Hold on. So light isn't really traveling.
Less like something traveling through space and more like a rhythmic pattern that our brain decodes in real time. We sync up with that distant structured motion.
Our brain is reaching out and syncing with distant events. That's a mind bender.
It really is. It changes how you think about space and time.
Definitely. Okay, bringing it back to us. Human origins. Religion often says humans are made in God's image, special, distinct. Motion theory.
Motion theory grounds us firmly in those basic rules of motion we've been talking about. It suggests our very nature of what we can do, our limits. It's all shaped by how motion works.
Can you give examples?
Sure. Think about our eyes. They're built to detect movement, right? Our hearts beat rhythmically. Our neurons fire in complex patterns, which is all about motion.
So it's embedded in our biology.
Deeply. The idea is that motion isn't just outside us, it is us. We are, in essence, incredibly complex, walking, talking patterns of motion.
We are motion. Okay.
Yeah.
That leads to knowledge and truth. Religion often relies on sacred texts for fixed answers, right? Established truths.
Yes, often providing a set framework of belief and understanding.
How does motion theory approach finding truth?
It's fundamentally different. Motion theory is all about ongoing questioning, exploring, discovering. There's no final rule book, no ultimate authority with all the answers locked down.
So truth isn't static.
No. Deeper understanding emerges as we get better at synchronizing with and interpreting these motion patterns. We uncover new layers. It's a journey, not a destination where all questions are already answered.
Always questioning, always refining understanding through sync. Interesting. What about morality? How we should live? Religion often gives clear rules, commandments.
Prescriptive codes of conduct, yes.
Does motion theory offer rules?
Not prescriptions, but explanations. By focusing on structure, synchronization, rhythm, the mechanics of how things work, it helps us understand why certain behaviors have certain consequences.
Like what?
Well, think about cooperation. It involves synchronization, building stable structures together, so naturally it tends to stabilize systems. Violence, on the other hand, disrupts sync, breaks structures. It destabilizes.
So it's about the physics of interaction almost.
In a way. Concepts like love, harmony, rhythm. Motion theory might suggest these are biologically stabilizing forces because they promote coherence and synchronized states.
Not divine commands, but principles of stable motion. Very different framing. Okay, the concept of the divine itself, central to religion. How does motion theory view God or a higher power?
Well, connecting back to the idea of ordered motion everywhere, motion theory might suggest that what we perceive or label as divine could simply be motion that is incredibly ordered, highly complex, deeply synchronized.
So not separate from reality.
Exactly. Not necessarily a separate being outside the system, but perhaps the pinnacle of order within the system. It suggests less of a sharp division, more of a spectrum of complexity in motion.
The divine as ultimate order within motion. Okay. Let's turn to death. Often a source of fear, addressed with promises or warnings in religion, motion theory's view.
It sees death as, well, the natural breakdown of that complex internal coherence we talked about. The synchronized rhythms that define a living being falter and stop.
And that's it.
Within this framework, yes. It's a return to less structured motion. There's no inherent punishment or reward, just the cessation of that specific complex pattern.
Matter of fact, what about miracles? Things that seem to defy natural laws, often seen as divine signs.
Motion theory wouldn't necessarily dismiss strange phenomena outright, but instead of calling them divine intervention, it would likely see them as pointers. Indicators of where our current understanding, our ability to synchronize with and grasp the underlying motion, falls short.
So a miracle is just misunderstood physics.
Potentially, yes. The idea is that with deeper understanding of the motion involved, the miracle becomes understandable. It becomes science. It pushes us to learn more.
Okay. Religion often provides certainty, which can be comforting. Motion theory seems more comfortable with uncertainty.
Absolutely. Because it's rooted in questioning and discovery, uncertainty isn't something to be avoided or feared. It's actually the starting point for new insights.
The fuel for understanding.
Precisely. Asking the questions, probing the uncertainties, that's how you deepen the synchronization and learn more about the underlying motion.
Okay, one more comparison. The origin. Some religions say God spoke the universe into being, a divine utterance. How does motion theory think about that initial whatever it was?
Motion theory offers a really fundamental take here. It suggests the universe itself, all its activity, its structure, its constant change is the expression. It is the voice, the structure, the ongoing unfolding of motion.
So the universe isn't the result of speech, it is the speech.
You could say that. It's the manifestation of motion itself, not something created by a separate command. The process is the expression.
That's quite poetic in its own way. It sounds like this isn't just philosophy, though. You mentioned it's yielding practical insights.
Oh, definitely. Motion theory is already offering some potentially game-changing ways to understand things we thought we knew.
Like what? Give us some key examples.
Okay, well, think about light, seeing it as synchronized motion collapse, not just particles flying. Gravity as convergence towards synchronization density, not a weird pulling force. Time as local rhythm resolution, not a universal river.
Wow, those are fundamental physics concepts.
Exactly. And mass as resistance to redistributing motion. Consciousness as syncing internal and external rhythms. Even looking at health.
Health, how?
Ideas around disease, mental health, maybe even healing, viewed through the lens of rhythmic coherence or decoherence. Some are exploring motion therapy.
Motion therapy. Interesting.
Then there's vision as real-time motion resolution, as we discussed. Understanding the photoelectric effect via structured motion pressure. Even explaining how planets stay stable, stars ignite, galaxies form, all through patterns of motion.
That's a huge scope, from light to galaxies to consciousness.
And the proponents would say this is just scratching the surface. The potential applications, once we fully grasp these principles, could be enormous.
So what's the end goal here? Is motion theory trying to be a new religion?
Not at all, based on these notes. It seems the emphasis is purely on awareness, on understanding. It's not asking for belief or worship.
Just understanding.
Yeah, it encourages you to think for yourself, to try looking at reality through this lens of motion. It aims for unification through understanding synchronization, rather than division through dogma.
Like a decoding system.
That's a good analogy. Replacing myth with rhythm, maybe faith with flow. Where religion offered comfort and belief, motion theory seems to offer comprehension through understanding motion's nature.
A shift from belief to comprehension, rooted in motion.
That seems to be the core invitation, to see reality through this fundamental principle of motion and explore where that understanding leads.
It really does provide a potentially unifying way to look at, well, everything, from the universe down to our own thoughts.
It's a powerful lens.
So as you, our listener, reflect on this, maybe consider how looking at things through motion, structure, and rhythm might change how you see your everyday life, or even long-held ideas. What new questions pop up for you when you use this framework? That's something to really chew on after this deep dive.